Good afternoon, good morning, everybody. Welcome to this webinar brought to you by Vivio Technologies in association with the Oil and Gas Review Middle East. My name is Stuart Douglas. I'm the Vice President for MENA region for Vivio Technologies. Along with me today are my colleagues Fran Montemuro and Clint Jeffis. Today we're going to talk about the operator knowledge gap and the 5 ways that the top plants around the world are actually preparing for the loss of that knowledge when subject matter experts leave for retirement, and the new guard or the new operating employees may well have a lack of knowledge in comparison to these subject matter experts that are leaving the field. As I say, my name is Stuart Douglas. My background is in the Middle East for the last 15 years, supplying operational software solutions into the oil, gas and energy market. With me today is Fran Montemuro. He's one of our directors of operations. He brings with him 30 plus years of experience in the field and field operations, working with DuPont. And my colleague Clint Jeffis, again, one of our director of operations. And again, he brings 19 plus years working with the likes of BASF and Total. I'm going to pass over to Clint now, who's going to take the presentation, or the first part of the presentation, and then we'll give you a small solution tour, and then Fran's going to show you some case studies on how the top 5 plants around the world are preparing for this knowledge gap. I'll pass over to Clint now.
All right, thanks, Stuart. Hey, everyone. As Stuart mentioned, my name is Clint Jeffis. I appreciate you all taking the time to join us today for the discussion around one of the real key challenges facing manufacturers of all types globally now, both currently dealing with and also in the coming years, is this, as Stuart mentioned, the growing knowledge gap in our workforce. You know, whether the cause is retirements, changing career path to an entirely different industry, changing companies, or even a lot of times we see changing roles within the same company. You know, nearly all manufacturers are experiencing the impact of the loss of operator knowledge. So what we'll address today is what the market leaders and those top performance sites that they have, what they're doing about that. So first, we'll talk about a couple of the key drivers for change. You know, why do we want to take on this new activity? Why do we want to do something different? We'll look at some of the common key industry performance metrics, and we'll do a little dig in just a little bit to get a little more depth, to get a little meat on that. As many may already know, or would at least expect, you know, nearly a quarter of all of the overall equipment effectiveness, or as many people call OEE, most of these losses are due to poor operations activities or operating equipment being operated in an unintended manner, lack of standardization leading to some inconsistencies in how the teams are operating the assets. There's another group, another way we'll look at this thing is that there's a group called the ASM Consortium, the Abnormal Situation Management Consortium. This group has taken a closer look into, you know, process upset causes and have made some quite interesting observations. This ASM consortium is made up of several industry leading chemical manufacturing companies, as well as educational institutions of higher learning. As shown in the charts, they observed about 40% of process upset causes are the result of human error. Another 40% are due to equipment failure, with the remaining 20 being an assortment of other minor categories. Though you see, when broken down further, about 3/4 of the equipment failure category actually traces back to incorrect operation of the equipment. That you know ends up resulting in 70% of abnormal events being the result of some type of human performance. So that same group observed that the vast majority of these situations that led to nearly all of these types of events would trace back to procedures, whether they weren't followed, whether they were just simply incorrect, or maybe the operator didn't follow them correctly. Obviously, the consequences of such events can be felt in the impacts to bottom line and profitability. Most obvious and immediate to most are the out-of-pocket repair costs if equipment is damaged. You know, that's what we pay immediately to get back up and running. But most of the time, the larger costs are actually from the areas where we don't write a check or pay money out to someone. You know, the lost production and the profit that would come with that is tremendous. Then there's also the costs that are difficult for many businesses and companies to quantify. Redirecting those key resources, which we've already said are in short supply, to fix those situations or get the plant back up and running and stable, instead of working on some of those optimizations or improvements that those personnel are better suited to do. Budgets and key resources required for these efforts are pulled away in a normal budget plan from other desired activities, debottlenecking and other profitable initiatives. So it doesn't just start and end with what we pay. The costs continue to spread throughout the business and organization. So the ongoing evolution of the workforce is really contributing heavily to this challenge. As you see here, in the time span of, from 2015 to 2030, of which we're about halfway through actually, millennials are expected to more than double their representation in the workforce. You can see a quick list of the challenges this type of transition will present. Onboarding new employees is difficult and resource intensive. With most of the current training methods, operators are released as what we call qualified in their jobs without truly knowing or experiencing even up to half of the information necessary to be fully competent in their roles. Those startups and shutdowns that may not happen while that operator is in training, that tribal knowledge is all those tips and tricks that decades on the job have taught these employees that are near retirement. We've got to capture that stuff quick, or we'll be forced to have to relearn that, and that's going to come with quite an expensive price tag. What a waste. I think another interesting challenge that's being uncovered as we continue this 4.0 conversion in the industry and we go through the automation and reliability improvement journeys are the paradoxes we've seen by improving those areas that we talked about, automation and reliability. As you see described here, the more we improve really in both of those areas, we simultaneously reduce the frequency of those events happening, which is obviously a good thing, though we mustn't lose sight that the potential impact of loss of experience dealing with the issue may hold what that impact could affect us in the future. McKinsey tells us that somewhere between 40 and 60% of field tasks are unable to be automated. So we will not be able to completely automate our way out of this problem. So we must be active. We must take action to capture, retain the knowledge within the organization while it still exists there today. So the solution Vuvio brings to the table, our operational excellence tool, will impact what we call overall workforce effectiveness, OWE. Now that's in addition to the OEE for those paying close attention in the beginning. Traditionally, much focus has been placed on the asset and improving its performance and ability to provide and extract information on how it's doing. But as you see, plants are made up of both assets and people. The improvement of the human elements and the human portions has not progressed or has not received the attention at the pace or at the level of the asset improvements. And that's precisely where Vuvio is going to fit in, right at that intersection of assets and people. So now I'm going to turn things over to Stuart, who's going to give you a quick demonstration of our solution so you can see for yourselves what Vuvio is doing that really is truly reshaping how our industry operates. So Stuart, let's not keep them waiting any longer, and I'm going to give it over to you and you can show them.
If you pass the ball over to me, thank you. Okay, thank you. So here we have, to introduce the Vuvio platform to you, this is a cloud solution and it's web-based. So as you'll see here on the screen, you have the home page, which has got our digital replica, and then below it you have the procedure simulators. Now, what do we mean by procedure simulators? We take your standard operating procedures, which drives the simulation of Vuvio's. Now, as you'll see in front of you, you'll see an image that shows you a pictorial image, a photographic image of a plant. Now, when I open up and press on my mouse, you'll see a white line appear. I'm actually driving this. So what you'll see here are pictures of this asset. And as I move freely into the plant, you'll see a transition start to take place. And I move freely through the plant, and just by moving my mouse to the left, you'll see that we'll make a turn, and I'll move freely through the actual pictorial images of this asset. Now, this is where the magic of Vuvio's technology comes into play, that it gives you a truly immersive experience, allowing you to traverse through the plant very freely. Again, all of these are pictures. You'll see here that I can actually click on an instrument. All of your instruments are tagged. Everything is there. All instruments are put in, and again, with your standard operating procedures, you see that I can play around with that. You'll see there that I was discussing about every single instrument that's been tagged. Also, as you know, when operators are out on the plant, they may be searching for an instrument that they have to perform a procedure on. So we have a module or component on here that allows you to search for a specific instrument around the plant. So if we click on what I've just searched for there, you can bring it up, you can interact with that specific instrument. Also, the map component. Now, this allows you to position yourself anywhere in the plant. So, for example, if I pick my abattoir up, which is my little guy here, and I can move him wherever I want to in the plant, which allows me some free movement around the asset. As well, we have enhanced views. So, for example, this cooling water circuit. If I bring that up, it looks fairly straightforward. I mean, everything looks exactly the same there. But if you have an operator that hasn't done the procedure that's being asked of him on this specific instrument, he doesn't exactly know what's happening behind that. The subject matter expert may well have done this many times, this procedure, and knows exactly what happens behind the scenes here. But to a new operator or to somebody who's lack of knowledge of doing this procedure, they take a look at that, that looks exactly the same. You've got 4 manifolds there. He's been asked to connect the upstream loop with the downstream loop on the right-hand manifold. Well, how does he do that? So we have quite a nice feature here where we can actually turn everything on and we can see what's happening behind the scenes. You can switch on your valves off and on so that you can actually then connect the downstream with the upstream loop, which is a nice feature in the technology. And now, so Clint's going to pick up the guided simulation, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So Stuart left off at the guided module.
Guided, yeah.
So we'll jump right into the guided module. And as Stuart mentioned, the guided module is like that virtual unit expert, that senior operator or subject matter expert, whoever that may be, that you want to teach these new operators or new to the area or refresh them. As you'll see, I have a simple solution here. The start, when I hit start, it's going to walk. I'm not moving at all. So in this guided module, what you have is several sections. To the bottom left right here, you have what would be the company or the client procedure. This is something that Vuvio would not adjust or change. This was something that would be owned by the company and would be your procedure. Off to the bottom right, what you see is the map that gives you the footprint of where your avatar that Stuart showed before, where he would be in relation to the plant, other equipment. What you've got at the top right is the replica or a copy of the replica as it pertains to the procedure. This area in the top left, what you see is what we call our action checklist that Fran mentioned a little bit earlier, that we break things down, and really get detailed with the procedures. If something says line up the pump, how many valves and drains and things need to be open, we're going to break that all the way down for those guys. So just jumping right in, what you'll see is this tells me exactly what to do. Step 1, close the condensate fill line. So I get in there, I actually interact with the valves. Say I did that, close, move on. The next section tells me right what to do. Okay, we're going to open it. Key point here, what you'll see is that pop up immediately right at the step where we are. This one is just text. This is what we call a knowledge snippet. It comes out of a little pill of information. This one is text, but you can put videos, you can put PPE notices, you can make this anything you want to that those operators would need, that you would want them to have at the point of access to move on and complete their job safely, effectively. So, yep, I got that. I'll minimize it. This says I should check it, close it. Great. And so again, what you see is this virtual trainer, like it would be someone holding your hand, walking you through the unit, going on to the next step. So I think we get the point there. So then what does this lead us to? Do we just train only? No. So this is what we have, the test module. So you'll see a little bit different, but quite similar. And so here you see you have your procedure document. You also have this test report that shows up. Same format up here with the action checklist and the map available on the bottom right. But this time you see I have no white lines. I have no direction. I have no SME coach. I'm on my own in the test module. So as I move forward, walk down, we can look up. You can see you have the same degrees of freedom that you have within the plant everywhere. And we want to start where we were before. So step 1, close the condensate valve. So I'm going to do this action. Done. You see what you get here is immediate feedback from the trainer, your trainer. Yep, green is good. Did that right. Great. So what's next? Okay, I know the next one is this little blue valve that stays open, but let's say, what if I make a mistake? So I'll go down and let's grab another valve. Let's say I think it's here. What happens? So I'm going to open this one. Oh, hang on. I interacted with the wrong instrument. I opened the wrong valve. I did not open my knowledge snippet. It gives you all this information of what you did, what you should have done. And the great thing about simulation, as always, you can review, jump back into the guided module, or you can try again. So you can go back in the simulator, turn back around. I could have picked the guy up and walked him back if I wanted to. But I'll go back, look up, say, okay, yeah, I remember it's this one with the knowledge snippet. Now I'm good. Okay, I'm green again. So you get this interactive teacher that really will show you what you need from the solution. So again, you have all the items you need right here in the trainer, virtual SME, with the feedback that the trainer would give you. Additionally, what else comes from this? So you have mini LMS. We have an assignment system that would be accessible through, our administrator here. You can get reports such as this. Okay, here's the number of people who've taken the test, those outstanding users, user-defined inputs at the top. Okay, it's a test mode. You have to have an 80 to pass. You have as many attempts. Again, all this stuff is user-defined. It'll be set up by the user. So, and you can see again what everybody's made. After that, okay, here's a little bit deeper in diagnostics. So here's the results, same test. You see the distribution of scores. Quite a bit of people made 100. It's a short test, and maybe they studied well. That's great. The average, the people that barely passed, but you see the concern area is the people that made below what we define as the passing score. So again, I want to look a little bit more into that. We want to focus on those 3 people. So even more diagnostics, digging a little deeper, we can look at our frequency of missed actions. So you've got an action sequence number here in this short procedure that was 8 steps, and then the assignees or the frequency that was missed. So if I go here to step 4, I can see that it was missed 3 times on this action step 4. So I want to jump in. I want to see what may be going on before I go interview people and run through the whole plant. So I have that shortcut, jumps me straight into the simulator. And immediately I can see, okay, these are close. And upon a little bit of investigation, the people were manipulating this valve right here. Very similar valve. So do we make a physical change in the field? Do we focus on training? Do we do labeling? Do we change the valve totally? It's really up to the customer at that point, how to address the issue. But you've got these diagnostics that take you straight to the problem immediately and quickly. So it's want me to do the procedure, but again, you can see these simulators. And as I jump back to the guided module, just so you can see that player walking you through how Vuvio really establishes that the imprinting from the photorealism.
So as Clint started talking about, he's talking about the challenges in the industry. And in addition to the challenges around turnover, unplanned downtime, significant issues with human error, operator execution. Something else Vuvio brings to the table during all our projects is procedure clarity to the operators. So let me explain what I mean by that. Most procedures that we see in industry are written at a higher level than are executable by the operator. So what we do when we create a project for our customers, we ensure that there's clear and concise actions. And I'm going to show you an example of that. Once those clear and concise actions are generated, in addition to the pictures, the JPEG pictures, digital pictures that we take in the area, we marry those to the actions. So then the operator is able to visualize those procedures in the field, so they clearly understand what they're being asked to do. And then, as Stuart was beginning to show, the simulators. So the simulators afford the operator the ability to practice those standardized procedures and learn by doing. Why is that important? So during the lifespan of all our projects over the last 3 years, gathered a bunch of data from our customers' projects, analyzed about 300 procedures. And you can see the breakdown on the left of the types of procedures. Most of them startup, shutdown, and equipment swap procedures. 90% of those procedures contained ambiguities. And I'm going to show you a really good example of that in the next slide. But to the point number 2, ambiguities and generalizations. Procedures are written and not always in favor of the operator. Very common in our procedures and our customers' procedures. We see comments like line up the pump, but it doesn't actually explain to the operator how to line up the pump. Or open all the drain valves. Well, how many drain valves? So those ambiguities are across all our customers' projects. The first point, again, a challenge across all our customers, is the procedure as written does not match the operator practice. And even to a point where there are different practices within a single unit across the various shifts. That's a significant challenge if you're looking for standardization and of execution for the procedures when it comes to starting up and shutting down a plant. So here's an example of ambiguity. What's on the left is a single step that was in a customer procedure. And it involved opening some flush valves. Again, a single step. And this is what the operator was to read and go execute in the field. And just below it was a caution that if it was not executed properly, it could poison the reactor. When we walked this procedure in the field and created an action checklist for the operator to follow, there are actually 53 actions across 15 valves and other components that the operator had to perform to successfully complete this one step. So again, it's the clarity that operator needs to effectively and efficiently execute that procedure. So that's procedure clarity. But once we have that clarity, I mentioned learn by doing. This is the learning pyramid. It's very common in industry. But I bring it up today to really remind the audience the importance of giving the operator the tools that's going to help them remember and retain what they learn as they qualify, practice on the job, 2, 3, 10 years into their job. They will remember simulation and actually performing the job. They retain 90% of what he or she does. Whereas if they're just given a written document to read, they will not retain that information. It's documented time after time in industry. We've done exercises with our customers, and they themselves have been able to demonstrate the same level of retention with their operators by practicing the Vuvio simulators, coming back months later, testing them on that same content, and the retention is 90% plus. So then take the procedure clarity, the ability to practice using simulators. What we are seeing, and I'm going to show some case studies after we see if there's any questions, what we're seeing is a 30 to 50% reduction in time to qualify new operators, as well as 100% gain in competency. Why is that? Well, on the y-axis is operator competency. On the x-axis is time. The traditional way of qualifying an operator is shown in this gray arrow. And it involves reading, classroom time, job shadowing, maybe a written test, a field test. With Vuvio, giving the operator the ability to learn and practice on their own time, independent of the availability of an SME. They practice this content 24/7, take a standardized test, and demonstrate competency. They're able to practice procedures when the plant is running. All too often, operators cannot start up a reactor or shut down the plant because production's needed and they need to run. With the simulator, they can practice and demonstrate competency on all the procedures. So we're seeing significant gains on onboarding and less reliance on SME time. So summarize all this. So the 5 solutions that Vuvio is bringing to the industry and our customers is all around bridging that gap that Clint showed earlier, bringing the human competency to a point where they are effectively operating the units. And it goes back to what I showed about practice and procedure aligned. There is no more practices that don't align against a standard procedure. That way, when a unit needs to start out, the unit can count on the procedure being executed as written, not some practices, tribal knowledge that has not been reviewed and accepted by the organization. An action checklist. So it's very detailed. It's kind of like a pilot's checklist. It's giving that operator every action they need to perform to successfully start up that procedure. I mentioned the benefits of learn by doing, giving the operators the simulators, letting them practice, letting them be comfortable, refresh just prior to going out in the field and executing. The ability to test the operators on those procedures, demonstrate competency prior to executing in the field, documented standard execution, even the ability to go back 1, 2, 3 years later and have them retest and redemonstrate competency. And then lastly is refresh and ensure accurate execution. They can refresh, practice with the simulators, go in the field, and when they're in the field, there's actually another tool that we have available to them, which is a field execution tool, and they can actually use it as a digital aid in the field to execute efficiently and effectively. So let me share a couple case studies. So this first one's a chemical intermediates, petrochemical plant. And you can see the way I've set it up as a site, the challenge, what they use Vuvio for, and some of the benefits that they realized are on the right and what they use to calculate their ROI. So this petrochemical plant was seeing a significant challenge because they had a complex process and they were seeing a lot of turnover, a lot of attrition of operators. And in addition to that attrition, they were limited on the number of subject matter experts or true experience, operating experience they had available to them to train the new hires. This was resulting in significant unplanned downtime and delayed restarts. And when they were trying to start up, they were challenged to get the first quality product. So they had us come to the site and selected a bundle of procedures that we ended up simulating and created a standard execution for their startups and shutdowns. What we found at this customer is they had practices across their different shifts on executing the same procedures. So it caused them challenges because they never knew what to expect when they were going to start up their unit. So we standardized the execution. They were able to build their competency for those operators by allowing them to practice the simulators. Because they were limited on their SMEs, the operators practiced the simulators, become very comfortable and competent, were able to walk and explain in the field how they were going to execute these procedures and then actually perform them successfully. And they did use the field execution tool as a digital aid in the field. And you can see off to the right some of the benefits they realized on better OEE or asset performance, improved productivity because they were less reliant on the technical and SME experts, and then benefits related to onboarding, less costs associated with onboarding operators, and they were onboarding them faster. Another case study, similar setup. This one was in call it a technical gas plant. It's one of the smaller gas plants that support the larger refineries. And this was a significant issue with this company because when they had issues keeping their plant running, they would impact and affect the refinery, which is significant. So again, unplanned downtime. Their challenge was around swapping and starting up boiler feed water pumps. And again, a lot of that was attributed to they had high turnover. They would bring operators in 2-3 years. They would leave for other jobs, either in the refinery or other sites along the Gulf Coast. So again, we created the simulators and afforded the operators the ability to practice startup shutdown of the boiler feed water pumps, practice just prior to going to execute, and it eliminated their issues with boiler feed water pumps. And you can see the benefit on the top right around improved asset productivity. In addition, having the field execution tool and the ability for the operator to have their curriculum, train on it, they were able to onboard faster, more efficiently, more effectively. And this small unit even realized $67,000 a year in savings with reduced onboarding time, the ability to train the operators more efficiently and more effectively. And then the last case study I'll share is another chemical plant. Very similar challenges. It's a challenge across all of industry. Clint touched on that. We're losing our experienced resources, bringing in a new generation. The new generation learns differently. So using the digital tools, we worked with this unit. We created action checklists. We were able to provide that clarity to the operators by marrying that action checklist with the component pictures, creating the simulators, and allow them to practice and demonstrate $138,000 in savings related to onboarding operators more efficiently, more effectively. And you can also see some of the benefits around the asset improvement as well as productivity improvements. So again, the simulators afford the operator the ability to practice prior to execution, demonstrate competency, and then execute in the field accurately in a standard way every time.
Thanks, Fran. Now's the time to pause for some questions. We do have one question just come in. What about main focus on training? So I don't know if we want to pick up on that and elaborate more on the training side of it.
I guess the question is which piece of training. I guess they're trying to, I guess the question may be, and correct me if I'm wrong, responded to if we replace field training with this. And the answer is we don't have anybody doing that yet. What we do is reduce that time down by up to 90%, 70 plus at most of our case studies that have done the side-by-side. So we don't completely replace training. Again, I would not want to tell people, hey, send them out there if they've never been there. But again, they get there. It's like when they get there, they're going back to a place they've been rather than going out for the first time. So you can imagine the speed and like the charts Fran showed, time to competency is on a whole different level when employing Vuvio.
Yeah, excellent point, Clint. It definitely reduces the time to competency.
We have some more questions. This one here: do we need to review the procedures before we set a quotation? Do we need to review all procedures before we quote for the software? I'm going to pass that over to Fran. Of course, we need to review the procedures, right?
Well, so the customer does not have to review update procedures prior to implementing a project. We do that for you. That's what we do. We send our engineers to the field and we will walk that procedure with your subject matter expert and be very detailed on how to accurately and effectively execute that procedure. So by all means, do not worry about updating, reviewing your procedures prior to a project, because we're going to do probably the best procedure review that you've ever done, because we're going to walk it and add updates, take notes, and even take pictures of the components. So,
thanks, Fran. We have another question. How long does it take to complete an average project? Well, I suppose the question is, what's an average project, first of all? I'll ask that to Clint.
Yeah, so I mean, projects, again, it's hard to say average. Everybody has a different method based on their, I guess, degree of need at the time being. So most projects, though, interestingly enough, are within the same time frame. We're talking order of magnitude here. So I'd say 3 to 5 days typical on site for a 15 to 20 procedure project. If they're complex procedures, maybe there's up to 2 weeks for very large projects. So 3 days to 10 days of actual work on site would be small to large. Then we look about 12 on the short end to 18 on the high end weeks of the project. So usually within 20 weeks, we're delivering a final solution that's on the high end for a in-depth, detailed project. So yeah, order magnitude 16, 20 weeks. And with 2 weeks on site, there'll be a couple product check-ins from our team along the way that are about a day apiece, from somewhere around week 6 and then again around week 12, just to make sure we're moving on the right path, the components are named correctly and stuff like that. But as far as the resource demand from the site, it's a relatively low impact. And again, 3 to 4 months, you've got a final solution in hand. Fran, anything to add? Or
no, you nailed it. Very, very limited resource requirements. And to your point, we'll deliver everything that you saw, the simulators, the tests, the enhanced views, 16, 18 weeks.
What happens if we change, this is another question, what happens if we change something in the plant, switch a pump out, whatever? How easy is it to update Vuvio technology?
Yeah, so that's the great thing about Vuvio. It's a digital picture. And take a phone, a digital camera. If some small change in the plant, we'll work with our customer to take that picture, send it to us. We'll drop it into the digital replica, turn it around in a day or so, and it's updated. Something more significant, if they add a bypass around a process, or if they add new equipment, we'd recommend having our engineers go back to the site, spend a couple hours on site, take all those pictures. We'll bring it back and update the digital replica. That's from the physical side, but if there's any changes to the procedures, they want to add any knowledge snippets, we give them the authoring tool that they can do all those updates themselves.
And how compatible are we with other systems, with other solutions that have already been implemented? So, do we have a fully open API and we can talk to other systems that they're operating?
Yeah, and I can just take that one since we're volleying back and forth. Yeah, the open API can talk to most anything that a modern plant would be using, SAP, some of the other tools. Again, you saw the LMS that we have, our own internal LMS that comes with the system. We can connect any SCORM compliant connector to an LMS that you, the customer, may have. So I would say highly compatible.
Okay, that's the questions from this side. I don't know if we've got any more in the chat here. There's a question. Hold on just 2 seconds to read this. How do we make sure the procedure is right for doing an operation in terms of disaster from construction and design?
So
and maintenance.
I can see it as well, Stuart. I mean, as I look into that, and again, attendee, please let me know if I don't answer your question. But if it's a poor design, poor layout from commissioning, the procedure's incorrect, how do we know that? What we would do is partner with that subject matter expert and walk down. That's what our forward engineers do. They are professionals at this. They go all to plants and walk down procedures, and they're highly efficient at doing this. So we partner with that subject matter expert, and if the whole procedure, they mark up as they go. One person's taking pictures, the other person's on the tablet doing the action checklist. Several customers have chosen to take our action checklist and rewrite their whole procedure, but a lot of people just mark it up as we're going through as well. So if that answers it, I hope that we cover that by using the subject matter expert and matching, as Fran said before, procedure to practice, eliminating the ambiguity and focusing on procedure clarity.
Thanks, Clint. How can we enhance our procedure following? Is the question that's come in. How can we enhance our procedure following?
Yeah, spoke a little bit about that. Any changes to the procedure, it's very simple for the customer to go in using our authoring tool and change steps, change the order, change the sequence, clarify it. They can go in and make those changes without involving Vuvio. If they need to add a few components and we need to get pictures of them, again, we can work with the customer on taking those pictures, but any just changes to wording and or action steps, they can manage that, but we'd be more than happy to help them if they want us to help them.
I see one that popped up actually not in Q&A, Stuart, in chat, and I'll jump on that one. The question came up, can we add P&IDs in the simulator? So one thing that we do have that we don't have any that don't have NDAs that we can share, But yes, absolutely. We can put in many different things like a hotspot, or in that knowledge snippet, you can also use a P&ID document to embed there if you want to. So we've got several options how to incorporate P&IDs and several examples of quite a few other customers doing that. So the answer is yes, we can put that into the simulator. We would like to work with your team, Fran or I, or one of the ops people, on what do you want to do with that and what's the best way to do it. But we'd love to help you guys out with that.
And just to build on that, Clint, you know, you're aware of examples. We can make that P&ID come to life. So we can actually have the operator learn by taking that P&ID and actually opening, closing valves and seeing what happens. So that's the benefit of simulation, is we can bring it to life.
Here's another question just come in, guys. What about the security of the plant? Obviously, these are topic of national security, especially with the national oil companies out here. So that question is regarding security of the plant.
Yeah, I guess that's protection of IP, intellectual property. So when it comes to that, we're quite secure. The team uses Amazon Web Services, or AWS, to go through there. It's locked down extremely tight. We've passed, again, with all these other majors that the customers we see, the BASFs and others, that have these high levels of security requirements when it comes to IT. And we've met with the IT teams. That isn't anyone on this call, actually. That would be our CTO or someone like that. But again, yes, we manage security quite well and haven't had any problems thus far.
We've got our contact information. So if you want to take note of this for everybody that's on the call, we would be delighted to do a deeper dive presentation. As I say, I look after the region here. I'm the Vice President of Sales for the company based here in the Middle East, in Dubai. I'm available at any time, so please take down my contact details. If you want any more deeper technical information, happy for you to reach out to colleagues Fran and Clint. As I say, we're based here in Dubai, so any of our Middle East attendees, happy to reach out and further afield. And I'd just like to thank you for attending this webinar this afternoon. We are going to be running a number of webinars throughout the Middle East on different topics. We're going to be attending some events coming up over the next number of months. So please look out for us either on LinkedIn or the normal kind of social media channels. And if you're looking to speak to us for any reason, then please contact me directly, and you can go onto our website, which is vivio.com. I'll pass over to Clint and Fran to say thank you very much from their side, and we'll wrap up.
Yeah, no, truly, thank you guys so much for attending. We appreciate the time. We know you guys' time is valuable, and you're a busy group, especially this time of year. So thank you for the time, and we look forward to partnering and working with anybody who's interested.
Echo those comments. Thank you. Appreciate everybody's time.